they want to do most? They want to eat? Yeah? What do you think they live for the most? They live for food? What's another thing they live for? Huh? The herd? What did they get from the herd? They get to play with the herd, right? Security. Security is a big one, right? They feel safe with the herd. They have comfort with the herd. They play with the herd. They get information from the herd. Well, now we love this horse and we want to have a relationship with the horse. Now we have needs, right? What was your first memory with a horse, maybe? And then all of a sudden you go, oh, I think I want to compete, or I want to go trail riding, or I want to barrel race. I heard so many barrel races here. All of a sudden we have these needs with our horse. Do you think that's the first thing in your horse's brain to go, oh yeah, I want a barrel race? Right? I think we can answer that question right away when, let's say, if you ever worked with a very young horse or break a horse, what's the first thing they do when you approach a very young horse with a saddle, or even just brushing a young horse? They draw back a little bit, right? Their curiosity comes in, and then they're like, I'm out of here. Well, a lot of what I do every day is read that body language. And then I try to talk to customers about bringing them to the present moment and having a little bit more empathy for their horse. Because sometimes our dreams are bigger than what the horse can offer at that moment. And sometimes those dreams are very ambiguous. I want to go to the Olympic Games, win world championships in whatever discipline you want. But that's a very ambiguous goal in mind. I want to have a loving partnership with my horse. Well, that's pretty ambiguous too. So we have to think of objective ways of getting there. So when you take this really young horse that's natural instinct is to flight, freeze, or fight, we have to think about ways to communicate with that horse and gain their trust. So we have to peel that onion back and understand the horse's nature. So I always like to say that there's four, we owe this to the horse, and that's where we're getting these talks of nutrition and dental care. And from interacting with horses, I think we go through 4 levels of competency. We may start off like getting a horse, I'm going to get a horse. And we start off unconsciously incompetent. We got this horse, and now we don't know what to do with it. And sometimes we're just blind luck. Unconsciously competent. Unconsciously incompetent first. You're just going away at it, and then all of a sudden you may get kicked. Now, you start going, wait, I shouldn't have been there. You start gathering data, and you realize you're consciously incompetent. And so that you start looking for information, and then you start becoming consciously competent. So that now we've heard a bunch of information about dental care, nutrition. It's not that we know everything about this stuff, but we start to become intrigued by it with curiosity, and we start to learn more about it. Consciously competent. And if you spend enough time in the game, or enough time in the saddle, your goal is to become unconsciously competent. Well, that's the flow state. Things start to answer themselves. Things start to make sense. Our curiosity, answers naturally come to you, and you could play with the horse. So one thing that I do with horses is I read horses a lot. And especially when you want to progress, you have to think very objectively with horses, because they don't know your ambiguous dreams. They don't speak that language. They're very black and white. They're seeking comfort. And when you first approach the horse, you have to approach them with great empathy. So I think of two different kinds of tension. Do we ever hear that to get stronger you have to go through a struggle? You ever hear that phrase? Whatever doesn't kill you makes you stronger. Right? Well, I like to look at it as two different kinds of tension. If you could manage yourself through a little bit of tension, let's just say that you're unconsciously, you go from unconsciously incompetent to consciously incompetent, all of a sudden you start feeling that stress. You need to look for information. So you become consciously competent. You're using your brain muscles. You also do this physically too. We call this positive tension. You feel like you need to find answers. Curiosity kicks in place. Positive tension. I do the same thing with a horse. I push them in a way that I know, I'm asking them questions that I know they can answer, so I'm feeding their curiosity. What's the opposite of positive tension? What do you think? Negative tension. Negative tension is anxiety. And when you have an anxious horse, they're thinking about flight, fight, or freeze. Your curiosity state is out the door. So you're not going to really learn that much in that moment, right? We want to be positive tension. Always asking them questions that they can answer. So, when you think about training a horse, you have to think objectively what you really want from the horse. So what is it that you want from a horse? Anyone?
Walk forward.
Walk forward. What if you were to peel that onion back? Before you walk, you need to know how to stop too. It's like somebody who skiing and they go, forget about telling me how to go forward down the hill. How do I stop? Right? You need to learn how to stop first. You need to learn how to turn. Now these things sound really simple. But if your brain is too caught up on the big picture, like, oh, I just want to jump horses, the horse doesn't understand how you want to jump that course, or whether or not that rail comes down. The first thing the horse is looking for is, how fast do you want me to go, and in what direction? And if you don't have those points down, then you're going to be fighting with your horse. And in today's industry, there's quick answers, bigger bits, artificial aids, right? And I'm just hitting the very tip of the subject. But as we learn direction and speed with our horse, then we could make those points a little bit more complicated. Rhythm, bend, suppleness, connection, and we start speaking the language that the horse needs. So, there's many ways I read the horse and ask the horse all these objective exercises to get what I want. Good news is there's only 3 exercises. It's usually transitions, figures, and lateral work. Even on the ground, I'm challenging the horse with figures, and I'm reading the horse of how supple they could be in using their body. What happens when you get a tense horse? They're tight. And I look at the horse as having 5 major body parts: head, neck, shoulders, barrel, and hips, and whether or not we could get the horse to work congruently. Not to go down too much of a subject, but I'll give you if the horse is seeking comfort, and our ultimate goal is to create a horse, a performance horse, let's say, is to be in balance and offer balance and be ready for that trot transition or be ready for a jump. And let's say that the horse doesn't need to be told what to do, but offers the jump, offers the canter, offers the trot. I'll give you a demonstration how we get there. How do we get the horse to offer that? Everyone, go ahead and stand up. Everyone, stand up. Stand up. All right. Everyone sit down. Everyone sit down. Stand up. Sit down. Stand up. Stand up. Stand up. Sit down. See where we're going with this? You're ready for me to say stand up again, and you're sitting at the edge of your seat, ready to stand up. You've been put in the position of putting yourself in comfort to stand up. Where did you start? Started out in your stall, grazing. Just don't bother me. Just don't bother me.
Yeah.
Some of these stood standing, going, I know what's coming up next. Right? But in some ways, when you're asking the horse to go through exercises, you're giving the horse the liberty to find the balance on their own. You're not telling them, you're not controlling the horse. The ultimate goal is to have a partnership with your horse, and in the partnership, it's a two-way conversation. I don't want an obedient horse. I want a horse that's connected with me, that's almost anticipating the next move, that offers the next move. I don't want to make the horse do a piaffe or passage. It should be the next logical thing that the horse offers. So, of course, it takes a lot of time to get there. And that's how you go through these objective exercises to eventually get there. So, I printed out a little pamphlet here about objective training, just to kind of overview it, and feel free to take a copy if you'd like home. But I just wanted to send out that message just for the horse's sake, and so that we may look at our horses with a sympathetic eye and give them their needs first before our needs. So, thank you very much for all coming. Thank you for And of course, a lot of us are competitors here, and I think we overshadow the training for being competitive. Competition is a test, and you should think about that as being a test. If it's a test, it's a point in time of where you're at in your training. You should not have to manufacture something that you haven't prepared for. And if you're forcing your horse to do something for the win of that one day, unfortunately, you're going to hit repercussions later. You may win that show even, but unfortunately later on, the horse hits the blunt end of it, and you don't see it maybe now, but you'll see it later on. So, and that same thing goes at home too when you do train. Sometimes our eyes are bigger than what the horse actually needs. So we have our eyes too much on the end picture, and we force it from the horse without letting the horse offer it. So in that, we have to look for education, and hopefully you feel that tension in yourself to look for that education and discover how we can get these horses to do it more at liberty versus us making the horse do it. Because we have to think about their bodies. How do they use their body in balance versus contorting themselves? Because you know, if you run flat-footed or if you throw a ball without lowering the center of gravity, you're going to pull something. You're going to damage yourself physically.
Who's that?
That's,